Well, it's not exactly a career path to mayor, but I've been living in this area for a very long time. We came here in 1974 with the job that I was doing, and we've been here ever since. So in the nature of living here, we had 3 children and subsequently grandchildren. The children went to the local schools. We were involved in the local sporting operations in the area, so that, for example, I was treasurer, then chairman of the tennis club, and I was captain of the golf club, and in addition I was a governor in the local Radler Primary School and Radler Comprehensive School. So at the point when I retired from active business, then there's an obvious potential interest in serving the community. So I became a county councillor in 2008, and in due course the county council decided that they would appoint me as Lord Mayor. And that was done in the beginning of last year, but then the pandemic intervened, so I didn't actually take on the office until November, but because I was late in taking it on and the pandemic was still raging, the decision was that I would carry on as Lord Mayor until 2022. Well, as Lord Mayor, the first thing you do is that you chair the meetings of council. And the second thing is that you accept various statutory roles, such as being the Honorary President of Cardiff Met. But then I think that the main function of the Mayor is to be the face of the County Council, which can often appear very remote to citizens of Cardiff. But what one has to bear in mind is that the County Council provides something like 800 different services to the people of Cardiff, and it employs over 14,000 people to do it. Now, the ordinary citizen only gets fed up with the council and intervenes when something goes wrong. So if the kid doesn't get into the correct school, or there are potholes in the road, or the refuse isn't collected, they get in touch with the council. Now, in my opinion, the function of the Mayor is to meet people in social and semi-social situations and be the human face of the council. And that has been hugely impeded because face-to-face meetings aren't happening. So that, for instance, coffee mornings, which I have been holding at regular intervals, wine and cheese evenings, functions to raise money for my charity. Then, in addition, the various community groups are very active, inviting the Lord Mayor to come to the things like Ramadan and Eid festivals, carol services. Then there are, when someone is 100, or it might be choosing the winner of a photographic competition, charity queen. There's any number of things, and normally there are of the order of 400 events in a year to which the Lord Mayor is invited. So that's over one a day on average. Well, this year face-to-face confrontations are comparatively rare, and that's the main drawback of the pandemic. Well, I think that I'm coming towards the end of my time as a councillor, and I think it's quite a fitting end to be the face of the council for this final year. So it's a great honour for myself and for my wife, who to a big extent has been a supportive partner, but with really not huge personal involvement. So she gets a chance to wear dresses and hats and judge charity queen competitions and things like that. So it's a good thing for the family, and I think from the viewpoint of the council, I think I've done a reasonable job of chairing their meetings, and I hope that in the functions I've been able to attend, it all has gone well. But I look forward to a lot more between now and May of next year, when I hope we return to normality. Well, I think the big challenge of being a county councillor is to avoid thinking that you're part of Westminster politics. Westminster politics tends to be very confrontational, and there's a tendency when people get invited to be, or gets elected to be a county councillor, to think that this is an opportunity to behave the way in which MPs behave at question time. Now, I take the view that while I'm a Conservative county councillor, by and large, the things with which I'm dealing are not political issues. If someone doesn't get their kid into the correct school, this is not a Conservative matter or a Labour matter. It's a matter of a real cause of angst for this family, which one tries to resolve. So I think that as a county council, you have to avoid being partisan, and as mayor, that's even more important. Because if people are becoming confrontational, if you are clearly partisan, then any intervention you make will be assumed to be also partisan. Whereas if you stay even-handed, I can ask a member of my own party to behave, but I can also ask a member of other parties to behave, and it's taken as being constructive rather than being partisan. Well, you know, when I was in business, I received a considerable number of things because I was chairing or managing, directing 8 different companies at any one time. So there were a lot of issues came to my attention, and I always took the view that I had to read it when it turned up on my desk. But if I could deal with it at the same time as I read it, then in the long run that would save time, because the problem doesn't go away if you just leave it lying in an in tray. So if you have to spend the time reading it once, wherever possible, deal with it at that time. Now, as a county councillor, I'm dealing with a tremendous number of electors. Rotherham Morganstown has got 5,500 electors, which means that I've got nearly twice the number of any of the average councillor in Cardiff. And in Wales, the average councillor attends to something like 1,000 electors. Now, I get 50, 60 emails a day. If I put them all into a pending file and then hope to get around to them, it would just swamp me. So the easiest thing is deal with it. And when someone's just simply saying they want to come and interview me, well, it's yes or no. And then you may as well say yes at the time or no at the time. Well, I think inevitably you are faced with some situations which are not to your liking, and some things which, with business experience, I think I could do better. And so the judgment is always, should I intervene in this situation? And if I do intervene, what can I say and do which will be constructive and lead towards a resolution? And on the fire authority, there were a number of issues, and there was a limit to what one could do, because whereas my instinct as a businessman would to do certain things, I was actually one of 25 councillors on the fire authority, and the Labour Party had a considerable majority. So it was not going to work to do too much. And in every situation, it's a matter of judging what you can do and whether it's wise to do it. Well, we've got 3 children and 7 grandchildren. They're dispersed around the UK and indeed further afield, because our eldest granddaughter is in America at present on a scholarship. She's just about to graduate and take part in a very important athletics race. Her parents can't get out to see her. We've hardly seen her for the last 2 years. The rest of her family live in Cheshire. They came down to see us 2 weeks ago. Before that, we hadn't seen them for 6 months. And another family we've got is in Oxford, and exactly the same thing. Just a complete absence of contact apart from the telephone. Now, when children, particularly when they're young, if you don't see them for 6 months, you've missed a big chunk of their life, and you've not been part of their growing up. So inevitably it's impacted on our family. And I've also got a family in Scotland who I've now not seen for 2 years, but they're older, and it's a social thing rather than a need. But obviously it's impacted us. But none of our family have contracted coronavirus. None of them have died. 130,000 people have died, and a lot of people have suffered real angst. So I'd have to class what we've suffered as a minor irritation rather than a major problem. Yeah, an example is that we've always taken the family off together for a week's holiday. We've been doing it, 22 years since the youngest one was born. So the 15 of us have got a cottage booked in West Wales for August. We had the same one booked for August of last year, but at that time you could only have 2 households under one roof, and then eventually that tightened up as well. So we had to deal with the owner of the large farmhouse and say, we're not coming. And he said, why not? And I said, because it's against the rules. Oh, don't worry about that. We're in West Wales. Nobody's going to be driving around checking on you. And besides, I'm letting it to you, and I'm not going to come and check and see how many people you've got under the roof. And I had to say to him, look, I regret to tell you that I am basically law-abiding. In this particular situation, if I were tipped off as breaking the rules, it would be very serious for me and would impact heavily upon my ability to carry out my role. So he said, "Oh, well, you'll have to be a good boy," and I reluctantly agreed to cancel. Well, that's just a small thing, but it's an example that whereas some people might have felt it was worthwhile taking the risk, I certainly couldn't take the risk. Not that I really would have done so anyway. Well, that's, I mean, to an extent I'm straying into party politics here, because I think that what Cardiff needs is a lot of investment in ways to build up the economy. And I in particular think that Cardiff doesn't deliver on the package which it could offer tourists. The average tourist who comes to Cardiff stays one night. Now, cities which are set out to develop an offer get people staying 3, 4 and 5 nights. Now, I think what Cardiff should be doing is building up its civic buildings and heritage buildings, and then supporting this with literature so that every hotel is able to get guests on the first day and say, look, here's what you can do day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and you can also play golf and we can organise special deals for you. And now I think if Cardiff did that, spent money on bringing the heritage buildings like the Mansion House up to a decent standard, and then got people going round so that when they came to Cardiff, they regarded it as an important holiday destination. I mean, Belfast has done it with the shipyards, the docks in Gloucester and Liverpool have been built up. We've got a tremendous offer and we're just neglecting it. And the reason is that the council doesn't really have enough money to fulfil its aspirations. And its aspirations should be bold, because the whole economy of South East Wales is being driven by the engine of Cardiff's prosperity. And if Cardiff isn't driving the economy forward, nobody is. And one of the real problems Cardiff has is it collects £200 million a year roughly in business rates. But that goes into a pool and is shared out over the whole of Wales. And Cardiff gets back something like 100 million of it. Now, no other council in the whole of the United Kingdom loses that percentage of its income. And that extra amount of money would enable Cardiff to do many useful things. So I think that Cardiff is a sleeping giant, and I think the Labour Party in Cardiff are doing a fairly good job in awakening the giant, and they've got some very imaginative plans. But I think just simple things like building up tourism, which is a huge source of employment. People come to Cardiff, they go to museums, they go to shops, they go to bars, they go to restaurants, they pay for the hotels. It's really quite fundamental.